Surprise, surprise, some Bigfoot sightings in Wintergreen have been debunked.
Spotted Bigfoot in Cleveland County, and this isn't the first time. The legend continues. One man in Kaiser says he encountered the mythic beast just last week.
A Virginia man claims he spotted Bigfoot and he has the video to prove it.
After a group of brave explorers leaked the last video of Bigfoot, nobody could believe the evidence. It was a quick glimpse of a huge, terrifying creature. Experts thought that with this video, they could finally resolve the biggest question about Bigfoot. But now they are more confused than ever. Why are so many authorities hiding this new evidence from the public? Let us expose the newest Bigfoot video that the government has been hiding for decades. The legend of Sasquatch, fact or fiction? The ongoing intrigue with Bigfoot, also called Bushman, Sasquatch, or Omar depending on the region, highlights a fascination that seems almost comical in its persistence through time. Originally spotted in Canada in 1884, this elusive giant has been the subject of countless claims and stories, yet remains hidden from the clear lens of modern cameras. Matt Moneymaker, a lawyer who doubles as the head of the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization, guiding a group of over 3,000 enthusiasts. He recounts a chilling night encounter with an 8-foot-tall figure that growled at him in the moonlight, signaling he was an unwelcome visitor. Consider the Sasquatch Calling Festival in Whitehall, New York, where people gather to imitate what they believe are Bigfoot's calls. This event, blending local folklore with community participation, showcases the lighter side of the Bigfoot legend, but fails to provide substantive proof of its existence. The Sasquatch Genome Project represents a more scientific approach, spending nearly $500,000 in pursuit of Bigfoot's genetic footprint. The project claims to have uncovered DNA evidence suggesting Bigfoot is a hybrid being, part human and part unknown primate. However, the scientific community remains skeptical of these claims due to the lack of rigorous verification. A more unusual twist, Todd Standing sued the British Columbia government to force recognition of Bigfoot's existence after his own alleged encounters. He demanded that officials join him on an extended expedition to prove Bigfoot lives, relying on his videos as evidence. This legal action reflects the lengths to which enthusiasts will go, though it has yet to yield any governmental acknowledgement of Bigfoot. Historical curiosities, such as the exhibition of a frozen Iceman in the 1960s, purported to be a prehistoric Bigfoot-like creature, add to the folklore. This specimen, later suggested to be a fabricated model, was shown at exhibitions as a real creature, illustrating the blend of hoax and spectacle that often surrounds Bigfoot tales. The Patterson-Gimlin film of 1967 also contributed significantly to Bigfoot lore, offering footage of what appears to be a large, hairy creature walking through a clearing. Despite ongoing debates about its authenticity, with some suggesting it was a hoax involving a person in a costume, the film remains a cornerstone of Bigfoot folklore. Bigfoot's status in American folklore is robust, woven into the cultural fabric through a mix of genuine curiosity, scientifically dubious claims, and outright fabrications. For every argument supporting Bigfoot's existence, there is a counter-argument ready to deflate it, leaving the subject perpetually shrouded in doubt and skepticism. As it stands, Bigfoot is less a creature of the wild and more a creature of the imagination, persisting in the shadows of cultural storytelling and pseudoscientific exploration. Durango and Silverton narrow-gauge railroad passengers think they see Bigfoot. Instead of a clear shot, all they manage to capture is a blurry video that barely shows anything. Stenson, the one who took the video, insists it's not a person or an ape, noting the creature's unusually long arms. As usual with these videos, the details are fuzzy, making it hard to know what you're really seeing. Another incident in Mississippi in 2015, hunter Josh Highcliffe claimed to have come across what he thought was a Sasquatch. It was getting dark, and there, in the shadows, he saw a large, dark figure. Instead of using his hunting rifle, he chose to take a video. This decision is typical in these encounters, where clear thinking seems to take a back seat to the excitement of the moment. Then there's the show called Sasquatch University, hosted by Ryan Willis and Joel Connor. They explore reports of Bigfoot sightings and discuss them on their program. In one episode, they talk about a creature spotted in Owen Sound that was supposedly 11 feet tall, seen peeking over a sign. Once again, the proof is elusive. The story's thrilling, but unconfirmed. Moving over to Utah's Proco Canyon, another video surfaced in 2012, which has been viewed millions of times. It supposedly shows a large black creature in the woods. As is typical with these recordings, just as things get interesting, the people filming it run away, leaving their belongings behind. Another sighting occurred. This time, the witnesses reported a strong smell and a physical reaction that made their hair stand on end. But like so many times before, there were no clear footprints or undeniable evidence left behind. Each encounter is wrapped in layers of uncertainty and excitement, designed more to entertain or capture viewers' attention than to provide real proof. While the fascination with Bigfoot isn't likely to go away anytime soon, the substantial, undeniable evidence remains just out of reach, much like the riddle creature itself. These stories, the narrative is always set to keep the viewer hooked, with each new video or photo claiming to be the one that will finally solve the riddle. Yet they all end the same way, with more questions than answers. The cycle continues, feeding the curiosity and skepticism of the public, while the truth about Bigfoot remains as elusive as ever. As the night grew darker, questions about what lurks in the shadows lingered. Encounters with the unknown. Jim Mills reported seeing an unusual creature walking along a ridge and was convinced it was Bigfoot. He managed to record this encounter, which has become one of the longest videos showing a supposed Bigfoot. However, the video quality is quite poor, leading us to question why better evidence isn't available. The video, what is said to be Bigfoot, is seen walking down a hill. Many people defend the video's authenticity, insisting it has not been altered in any way. Despite having multiple witnesses, their surprisingly calm demeanor adds an odd layer to the entire episode. What happened afterward, whether the area was revisited for further investigation or if any findings were recorded, remains unclear, perhaps deliberately overlooked. In 2022, the Rocky Mountain Sasquatch Organization in Canada shared a video they claim shows another sighting of Bigfoot. This footage, taken by boaters in northern Ontario, is part of a series of reported sightings in that area. Despite limited details, the video has led to confident claims of its genuineness from fans. Observers highlight the creature's peculiar manner of walking over rocky terrain as especially striking, arguing that it doesn't resemble human movement. Another reported sighting involved a traffic camera in Washington in 2020. A Department of Transportation camera captured what appears to be Bigfoot standing in the snow. The agency shared the ambiguous images on social media, letting the public form their own opinions. The figure, barely distinguishable and set against the trees, could easily be mistaken for a mere shadow or a staged fake. We should also consider the famous 1967 footage from Northern California, allegedly the first video capture of Bigfoot. Despite many efforts to debunk this footage, it remains an essential piece of evidence for those who believe in Bigfoot. Critics argue that the figure could simply be a person in a suit, similar to movie costumes from that era. However, proponents of the footage insist that the detail of muscle movement is too intricate for any costume available at that time, thus keeping the discussion alive. In a 2012 event in Provo Canyon, hikers initially mistook what they saw for a bear, which then stood on two legs, causing them to flee in fear. This encounter, like many others, concluded with more unanswered questions, encouraging further speculation and various theories. Russia, a captivating video from 2016, claims to show a Bigfoot chasing a car. Most people think Bigfoot lives in North America, but this footage suggests otherwise. In the video, a dark figure, which people call Bigfoot, races towards a moving vehicle. The people in the car manage to keep ahead of the figure by driving fast, but they stop several times to film more of it. During these moments, the passengers scream to close the windows as the creature comes closer. At the height of the drama, it is said that the creature jumped on the car and broke the window. But unfortunately, this event wasn't captured on video. Meanwhile, in January 2013, a story unfolded involving 3 children in Russia. They were playing in the snow and decided to follow some large footprints to a frozen lake. There, they spotted a tall, dark, hairy figure standing in the distance. When this figure noticed the children, it quickly ran away. The children were frightened and ran home. Their experience was so striking that it was featured on a TV show. They described the figure as very tall and covered in hair, except for its face, which was hairless. This encounter convinced them and their families that they had seen a real Bigfoot. The most unsettling story comes from a 911 call made in 1996, also in Washington state. A man urgently reported to the operator that a very tall and large figure was moving around in his yard. He was extremely worried because just the night before, his dog had been killed, and he believed this figure was responsible. In his panic, he pleaded for immediate help. This call and subsequent sighting contributed to the local stories of Bigfoot, with the sheriff's office later receiving a photograph of a similar-looking creature in a neighboring yard. These accounts, whether they involve Russian children or hidden cameras in the U.S., share common elements of fear and wonder. They show how stories of Bigfoot continue to be told and believed by some. The internet has seen an influx of Bigfoot-themed videos. Among them, certain videos purport to record the unsettling sounds of an unknown being howling in a dark forest. Picture this: you're all alone, encircled by trees, when suddenly these terrifying cries break the silence. Personally, I would run back to safety immediately, yet some choose to stay, even as darkness envelops them and the howls intensify. A giant footprint leads us deeper into the unknown wilderness, the shadows in the Ohio woods. Consider the case from Jefferson County in July 2021, documented on a Bigfoot enthusiast website. An Ohio resident discovered his chicken coop empty, strewn with feathers yet devoid of chickens or blood. Nearby, a large, inexplicable footprint was found. This footprint, measuring 18 inches in length, is much larger than usual. Bigfoot investigator Jim Thompson was called in and found more such footprints, unusually far apart. Over the next weeks, the man heard strange cries at the edges of his property and felt a persistent sensation of being watched. It's almost like a scene from a thriller movie, isn't it? Turning our attention to Suzanne Fenchak, who transformed from a skeptic to a believer after allegedly seeing a Bigfoot in Loudonville, Ohio. She even captured what she believes are the sounds of this creature. Despite the poor quality of the recording, the sounds it captured are distinctly odd. We also have the Mahoning County report from July 2021, where a couple, returning from dinner, claimed to see an odd creature covered in gray and silver-brown fur sprint across their property. It moved awkwardly, not resembling any familiar animal, and disappeared into the thick plants by their pond. How could one rationalize such a sighting? Was it an animal mistaken in the dim light, or something truly unexplained? The 1992 Grassman sighting harks back to an era of blurry VHS tapes, which only adds to the strange nature of these accounts. Don Keating believed he captured a Bigfoot disappearing into the woods of eastern Ohio. Although the video is inconclusive, it adds to the ambiguous collection of evidence supporting the legend of Bigfoot. Monroe, Ohio in 1978, a family reported a large, unknown creature that threw stones at their house and left large footprints in their yard. The incident received much attention from the local media and was dubbed the Monroe Monster Case. Even the former Stark County Sheriff weighed in, affirming the family's fright and belief in what they saw. Mark Dorth, a Bigfoot investigator from Ohio, has spent 30 years pursuing this legend. His adventure began when he encountered a tall, hairy, two-legged creature in an old strip mine. Since that day, he has been gathering proof, convinced of the creature's existence. You see, when filmmaker Seth Breedlove, who previously doubted such tales, describes his own sighting of a quick, muscular, two-legged creature in Monroe. His experience is detailed in a YouTube documentary series, contributing another chapter to the ongoing narrative of Bigfoot's sightings. From eerie nighttime cries to unexplained footprints and face-to-face encounters, the quest for Bigfoot continues to stir curiosity and provoke discussions. Are these incidents merely cases of mistaken identity, fabrications, and vivid imaginations? Or could there be genuine substance to these tales? In the faint morning light and the deep shadows cast by the forest, the boundary between established fact and folklore remains intriguingly unclear. In this collection of stories, we start with a video that shows something large and hairy moving through the trees. The video is well made, not blurry or shaky like many others. It shows a creature that looks strong and bulky, not at all like the cheap costumes you see in stores around Halloween. Even if it turns out to be fake, the video is impressive because it's so clear. Then we have the story of Jan and Larry, two campers who had a frightening experience. One evening, while they were inside their tent, they heard footsteps outside. Suddenly, their tent was violently shaken. They believe it was Bigfoot attacking their tent. The couple later claimed that the area was home to 7 of these creatures, and they even had photographs of the footprints to prove something was there. Next, there's a story from Colorado. A couple driving at night felt their car hit something. They stopped and looked back to see a large, dark figure on the road. It wasn't clear what it was: a bear, a person in a costume, or maybe a Sasquatch. The figure was only visible for a short time, but it was big and it made them very scared. We also hear about an old story retold by Teddy Roosevelt, which he heard from a German hunter named Bowman. Bowman and his friend went into the Montana wilderness, an area known for danger because another hunter had been killed there months before. Despite the risk, they set up camp. One day, they found their campsite torn apart, likely by a large animal. That night, they heard strange noises and smelled a terrible odor. The next day, they decided to leave. Bowman went to collect their traps, and when he returned, he found his friend dead. The man's neck was broken and his body was covered in bite marks. Bowman quickly left the area terrified. Eerie sounds and shadowy figures take us to the haunted valley of the Headless Men. The Silent Stalker. Now we have a story from a Reddit user who has since deleted their account. They were hiking alone in Oregon when they started hearing loud, strange noises that sounded like whoops. At first they thought it might be other hikers or animals, but the sounds were too loud and seemed to come from multiple directions. This turned their peaceful hike into a nerve-wracking experience. These stories, whether true or not, continue to add to the ongoing discussion about whether creatures like Bigfoot really exist. They capture our attention with just enough detail and drama to keep people intrigued. Whether these creatures are real or just figments of our imagination, the tales about them continue to thrive, filling us with wonder and a bit of fear about what might be lurking in the remote parts of our forests. The truth remains hidden, as elusive as the figures described in these stories. Now, let's consider a series of frightening events that took place in the ominously named Valley of the Headless Men in Canada. The tale begins in 1900s, marked by the discovery of two men found without their heads in a river. Over the years, similar horrific discoveries were made, including other headless bodies found in the same area. The local native tribes had abandoned these lands long before, perhaps aware of the dangers that lurked there, dangers that the unfortunate victims were not aware of. Those who dared visit the area reported numerous unsettling signs: large footprints typical of a huge animal, strange loud sounds, and a foul smell not typical of a river area. These signs pointed to the presence of some large, unknown creature haunting the valley. Further north, in the abandoned town of Portlock, Alaska, a series of disturbing incidents unfolded during the 1940s. Residents were terrorized by frequent disappearances and the horrifying discovery of bodies torn apart, which were often found in a nearby lagoon. Local stories spoke of a creature known as Nanak Bigfoot, believed to be behind these terrifying events. The fear grew so intense that by 1949, the entire population had fled, leaving behind a deserted town filled with stories of giant footprints and shadowy figures in the forest. On another note, a woman from the UK, while visiting California for work, had a shocking encounter with two enormous Bigfoots. She initially mistook them for mountain lions, but when they stood up on two legs, she realized these were no ordinary animals. The creatures were over 7 feet tall and seemed to be gathering seaweed and communicating with each other in a strange manner. When she tried to take a picture, the noise of her camera lens cover falling startled the larger creature, which charged at her. Fortunately, the smaller one intervened, and after a brief confrontation, both retreated into the woods. The woman, shaken by the encounter, was lucky to escape unharmed. Now we revisit the 1924 incident at Ape Canyon near Mount St. Helens, a pivotal event in the study of Sasquatch. A group of miners, including a man named Fred Beck, reported being attacked by large hairy creatures after a confrontation where rocks were thrown. The creatures reportedly retaliated by assaulting the miners' cabin. The next day, the miners found large footprints around their cabin, suggesting the presence of these large beings. This incident remains a significant, though controversial, part of Sasquatch research. James recounts the tale of the Boggy Creek Monster, alternatively known as the Swamp Stalker. This creature, described as a large, smelly being that walks on two legs and has massive feet, looms over the small town of Fouke, Arkansas. This scenario might seem like a scene from a fantasy book, but for some, it's a chilling reality from the 1970s. The peaceful spring of 1971, two young couples decided to settle in a modest house by a creek in Fouke. Soon, their dream of a quiet life turned into something unsettling. They started hearing loud footsteps at night on their porch. Not just the usual creaks of an aging house, but something more sinister. By day, they discovered unusual, large footprints with 3 toes near their home, adding to their unease. A small town's peace is shattered by a creature's attack, blurring the line between legend and reality. Russia's 2016 horrible sighting. One evening, the unexpected happened. The couples came face to face with the massive creature, covered in shaggy hair and emitting a horrible stench. It tried to enter their home. In a frantic response, one of the men shot at the creature. The shot seemed to anger it, leading to an attack where another man was injured and needed immediate medical help. This attack is notable because it is the only time a doctor has had to treat someone for injuries caused by a so-called crypt. It's a moment often pointed to as proof that there might be some truth to the tales. Across continents, in Russia in 2016, another supposed sighting of a similar beast stirred interest. Captured in a grainy video, a dark figure approached a car. The occupants of the car, already scared, tried to escape, but curiosity drew them back to capture more footage. This incident, much like others, might easily be dismissed as a hoax, perhaps just a person in a costume trying to create a stir. In Washington state, a group of self-declared Bigfoot enthusiasts, known as the Olympic Project, claimed to have found nests that could belong to Bigfoot. These structures were made from broken branches and were arranged in complex patterns. Primatologists who examined these nests concluded that they might have been made by a primate, suggesting that the maker had real intelligence and purpose. Turning to the origins of Bigfoot, some scientists like John R. Napier and Gordon Stenberg have linked the creature to ancient beings called Paranthropus, known for their robust skulls and strong jaws. They walked upright much like humans but lived thousands of years ago in Africa. This theory, however, struggles to explain how such creatures would be present in North America today. Steve Moon, an academic with numerous degrees in 10 years of field research, is committed to proving Bigfoot's existence through scientific methods. He hopes to move the discussion from folktales to factual recognition. During his research, he even claims to have communicated with these creatures through sounds, receiving responses that he believes could only be made by a Bigfoot. The stories range from mildly amusing to downright frightening, often blurring the lines between fact and fiction. Across the globe, stories persist of strange, big, often hairy beings that sit between being an ape and a human. These creatures, described in tales from many cultures, always manage to avoid clear detection. The famous Bigfoot is not just a tale from North America. Similar stories pop up in other continents with local twists. There's talk of the Yowie, a creature mostly seen in the Blue Mountains west of Sydney, with over 3,000 reported sightings. Then there's the Yeti of the Himalayas, often dramatically called the Abominable Snowman, a term that seems more suited for grabbing newspaper headlines than scientific accuracy. Deep in Sumatra, Indonesia, folklore introduces the Orang Pendek, described as a short humanoid with feet pointed backwards, supposedly to confuse those who might follow its tracks. Over in Kenya, Central Africa, stories describe the Agogwe, sometimes mistaken for a hyena or bear. Yet some describe it as a monstrous giant that eats brains, a description likely fueled more by fear than fact. These stories share a common theme, a hope, perhaps a desire, for these creatures to be real. This desire often overlooks the lack of solid proof. For instance, John Napier, in his 1973 study, stated that while hard evidence is lacking, he found it difficult to entirely dismiss the large amount of reported tracks and eyewitness accounts. This fascination is kept alive by organizations like the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization. In 2022, a couple biking in Pennsylvania reported seeing Bigfoot. Despite no physical evidence like sounds or smells, their account was added to a collection of similar tales, each adding to the legend. Photos and videos claiming to show these creatures occasionally surface. For example, in 2012, a hunter claimed his trail camera captured an image of Bigfoot. Despite the grainy and unclear photos, they were quickly celebrated by some media and the public as proof, illustrating our love for thrilling stories over solid facts. Historical accounts also fuel these tales. David Thompson, a well-known surveyor, once recorded in snow that he couldn't explain. Then there's the story from 1924, known as the Battle of Ape Canyon, where miners claimed they were attacked by huge ape-like beings. Such events have been retold many times, blending fear with excitement. The tale of Albert Osman, who claimed he was kidnapped by a Sasquatch family in 1924, only came out decades later when other similar stories were becoming popular. This timing suggests the story was influenced by the growing interest in such creatures. Regardless of their actual existence, these beings certainly live in our imaginations. They appear in our stories and discussions, stirring up excitement and fear. These tales prompt numerous expeditions and investigations, showing our deep fascination with the unknown. Whether or not these creatures are real, they have a firm place in our cultural psyche, sparking endless debates and curiosity. This fascination ensures that the stories of these elusive creatures will be told and retold, continuing to engage and intrigue people all around the world. Is Albert Osman's story a genuine encounter or a fabrication influenced by rising Sasquatch tales? Share your thoughts below, like, comment, and subscribe for more intriguing discussions.